I wanted to take a moment to talk about a question that per diem athletic trainers oftentimes forget to ask, or maybe don't even know to ask prior to accepting a per diem job opportunity. And that is, what will the ratio of AT to field or court be? The reason why this is important is because sometimes we can accidentally get ourselves into situations that are actually quite dangerous for us to be in. And what I mean by that is sometimes without intentionally doing it, or maybe if they are intentionally doing it, event administrators try to cut corners or find cheaper options in providing the bare minimum of what is needed in order to meet the satisfactions or the requirements of providing medical services at their event. And oftentimes what this ends up looking like is a single athletic trainer responsible for providing coverage across 30 fields or 15 fields. The reason why this is dangerous is because from a liability perspective, we really cannot be effective and absolutely not efficient in providing services when this is what the expectation is. So it's important to ask this question up front and find out what are the expectations of that event organizer or administrator, and help them to understand what is realistic in terms of what you can provide and how you can be effective as the medical provider at that event if there is an enormous amount of fields. Now, it's not to say that you would necessarily have to turn down services if there's an enormous amount of fields. Though, before I get to the point that I would like for you to make, I want to say something. We as athletic trainers should be using these conversations as opportunities to educate and advocate on behalf of ourselves to get people to understand why it isn't appropriate or why it isn't acceptable for us to be used to cover an expansive number of courts or fields. What that conversation looks like is just getting the client to understand that as a single person, you cannot reasonably be expected to provide true healthcare administration and services and care for that many number of athletes or attendees or participants, and do things in an effective manner. When we sign up to do more than what we can reasonably do, we stretch ourselves thin. We find ourselves oftentimes in predicaments where we are shortchanging ourselves on an evaluation, or we end up doing something and putting out work that we are not proud of. I urge you to protect yourself in these situations by limiting the scope of practices that you're willing to provide. I talk about this in many of my videos, and it's really a point that I want to drive home, especially when we're working per diem job opportunities. This is always an opportunity for you to say, I just don't want to do this service or this X portion of what is within or allowable as a certified athletic trainer. Oftentimes, these event administrators are trying to get someone that is present and available in the event of an emergency. And oftentimes that is, in my opinion, the bare minimum of what the services should be provided. Now, if that's where services have to stop because they don't have it within their budget to provide several athletic trainers, or it just isn't realistic for you to be on several sidelines at once, you kind of just need to be planted in one specific area, I definitely would recommend for you in your contract with that client to keep your services limited at just acute and emergency response. This way, you have advocated for yourself, you have created realistic expectations for that client moving forward, and you've limited the liability for both yourself in accepting this job, but also for the client in moving forward. And there are clear expectations of what everybody is going to be providing at this event.